So, welcome to all of you. Again, it is a beautiful day here in New York City, and welcome from wherever you are Zooming in from, or if you're watching this recorded. You all know me, but I'm Rachel Justice, and along with my partner, Jillian Levinson, we co-lead the Woman to Woman program. And I am absolutely thrilled that my good friend Jodi Gorenstein has decided to join us today and share her expertise. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but she is an HR super connector. And I love the word connection because when we were brainstorming about this topic, what we realized is that certainly connections and networking are things that are important when you're looking for a job, but the skills that you learn in that area and the expertise she has to share can apply to so many different areas of your lives, whether that's your healthcare experience, your personal connections, whether it's looking for a job, volunteer opportunities, personal relationships. So I think it is just incredibly versatile information, and there's nobody better to share it with us than Jodi. So, Jodi, thank you for being here. We are thrilled to have you. You have a great audience here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
So, Jodi Gorenstein, I've been a global HR leader for 25 plus years. I've always had a passion for using my HR skills in my community. I've always had a passion for helping people through job transitions. I love using my HR skills to help others. I've always been a go-to person for people who are in transition. People, friends, family would send their folks to me, you should speak to Jodi. She will introduce you to people. She's been through it before. She knows lots of recruiters. And then I realized about 2+ years ago that this job market was much more challenging than any other job market I had seen in my career. And I realized people needed more support. They needed someone who was really in it with them day in and day out because job searching is tough. It is challenging. It can be lonely. It's an emotional roller coaster. And I therefore designed and launched HR Super Connector, which is holistic and customized job search support for really any type of job seeker. Any level, it could be C-suite, it could be a recent college grad, it could be anywhere in between, any type of function, HR, sales, marketing, IT, nationwide. My job seekers are all over the country, and any type of industry that folks are working in and interested in getting better networked in. So the way I help my clients is I help them first with what I call the basics, which is improving your resume and really making it a wow, because my clients are fabulous and sometimes their resumes do not reflect their fabulousness, and even more so with their LinkedIn. So there are lots of ways with text as well as functionality to update your LinkedIn so it looks really clean, crisp, professional, but also that you have the keywords. So when recruiters or AI, in many cases these days, are searching for people with your type of profile, that you come up in those searches. And with that, I also help people
So, dearie, I'm
improve.
very worried for you, but help is on the way, and maybe we can have it. Okay, bye, dear.
I also help people improve their LinkedIn algorithm because anyone that has looked for a job recently knows that LinkedIn is really the key. And there are specific things to do on LinkedIn to get LinkedIn quote unquote points that improves your algorithm. Again, means that you're going to come up more in searches than someone with a similar profile to yours who is not as active on LinkedIn. I help people with their elevator pitch and a broader narrative. So, as an example, I have some clients who took a career break, haven't worked for several years. How do they explain that? How do they articulate the reason why now they're going back to work? And how do they really compel recruiters or hiring leaders to believe that their skills are sharp, even though they haven't been in a traditional job for the past several years. Or I have people who are switching careers and pivoting, and telling that story in your elevator pitch and in your broader narrative is really important. And making sure that narrative follows through all of your personal branding, your LinkedIn, your resume, and again, what you're saying when you meet with people. I help my clients, back to Rachel's point about the power of connections, really leverage their existing network, contacts, and think about those people that maybe they hadn't thought about reaching out to. I encourage them that even though you haven't spoken to so-and-so in a couple of years, I'm sure they will be delighted to hear from you and interested in helping you. So it's really important to go broad and deep with your own network. And I help my clients with strategies for how to do that. What do you say when you reach out? How do you reach out? Is it an email? Is it text? Is it LinkedIn? How do you increase the likelihood that they're going to respond to you, and even better, book time with you so you can chat with them, explain what's going on with you, see if they ask them for any introductions that they could make. And I always recommend coming at it from a, symbiotic place, meaning don't out of the gate say, Rachel, I need your help. I'm desperate to find a job. When can you chat? But instead say, Rachel, it would be great to catch up and see how we can help each other. And then obviously any way that you can help them, you do. So I help my clients with that, as well as I make introductions on their behalf. If I know, Margie's a client who's a sales leader in the pharmaceuticals industry, and I know recruiters who specifically recruit for those types of roles, that's someone I might introduce Margie to. Or if Ellen is looking for a marketing role in beauty, and I know a bunch of beauty marketing executives who might be in a position to hire Ellen, then I'm going to put them in touch. So I make introductions, and I also provide inside intel for my clients on inside information I find out about roles. So Rachel, I'll pause there because I know I went into a whole lot of detail.
Yeah, I think the other thing also is that all of the skills that you are talking about, and I think that's what's so interesting about this information, you can take it outside of the HR arena also. Like it's not just looking for a job, it's how do you make connections with people for whatever it is, wherever you're at in your life right now. Again,
Exactly.
whether you are looking for a new volunteer opportunity, whether you are looking to make new friends at a certain point in your life. Again, a lot of people go through, talking about helping people through transitions. Transitions can be, life cycle changes also, whether you're looking, how to figure out how to, have the best relationship with your medical team. I mean, again, these are really, really important skills. I also really like what you said about, the idea of how can we help each other, and it's funny because it's very intrinsic to the woman to woman model. We talk about with our volunteers who are with us, they volunteer, but as anyone who's on here, who's one of our survivor volunteers can attest, they say they get as much from it as they give to the women that they're matched with and that they're helping. So I think this is great. All around, it's just great skills and messaging. And also part of what you're talking about, you haven't used the word networking yet, but a lot of this is network, or maybe you did use networking, but not in the context, but it's also advocacy is a word that we use. And I think you're talking about self-advocacy here. And that's something we talk about a lot in the healthcare world too, a lot.
That's great. And I would make a parallel to people in a job search sometimes don't feel comfortable reaching out to people in their network or promoting themselves, whether it's on LinkedIn or just in conversations with people. And so I meet clients where they are. I want I don't want to push them to do something that they're not comfortable with, like writing an original post on LinkedIn. If that's not something they're comfortable with, that's fine. We'll figure out other ways for them to kind of put themselves out there, make connections that are authentic to them. And I would love to hear from the group. I want this time to be as useful for you as possible. Are there specific goals you have for this call or questions? And then I can, tailor my additional thoughts to what you're interested in. Is anyone? Oh, yes, Margie.
So I think Rachel kind of said it, that what I notice with other women uh, working with the medical system, there really is a difference with how you connect to your providers in terms of getting what you need, how you approach it, the language you use, your body language, um, and I'm sure you know a lot about that, that
Yes.
there's an art to it. It's not always simple to get your needs met. So any example you can give, within this medical challenge we all go through and how many appointments we have to make, but also, how to ask your provider, your doctor, whoever, a question in a way to get the kind of answer you need, not the perfunctory yes or no. What can you do to build that rapport, to build that trust? Because
Right.
I think it's an art to build trust as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with that. I think building trust is doing things like we said, or I just briefly mentioned, how can I help you? And there probably aren't many scenarios where you can help a doctor. It's a different type of relationship, but if there are ways to do that, certainly that's an option. And just coming from a place of authenticity, the doctor obviously is an expert in their area, but you have questions that you need answered. And to, like many things in life, prepare ahead of time. And obviously, in some of these situations, we may not have the benefit of preparation, but if it's a doctor visit for you or a family member that is on the calendar and you're planning for, really thinking about the questions that you want to ask and prioritizing them. So if the meeting gets cut short for whatever reason, you've asked your most important questions, and having the confidence to ask the doctor to clarify their answers if they're not clear. A big thing, a big outcome that my clients see or I see in them when we work together is their increased confidence in themselves. I see my clients really sitting up straighter when they start to see more people reaching out to them on LinkedIn, inquiring about whether they're interested in a role or not. So I think having that confidence is really important as well. And going into that meeting, knowing I have every right to ask all the questions I want to ask. I hope that's helpful.
I also saw that Cynthia had her hand up before.
Yes, I did have my hand up, but Marge kind of like said some of the things that I was thinking in the back, but she framed it well. I also wondered, like, in terms of preparing for those meetings, those opportunities, because a lot of times the times is very constricted in terms of what we have. Sometimes it's hard for me, but I'm working on slowing them down a little bit. Because they seem like they go kind of fast, even though I may have questions. It's like the timing of the question at the visit for the men to get in what they need to tell me, and for me to be able to get into to them what I'm concerned about, perhaps. But I also want to know how to. You talk about LinkedIn and stuff like how do I find reliable research sites on these particular doctors, right? I might go and you see, oh, they give this star, but this still doesn't tell you too much. A lot of times, we rely on someone else who's had experience with that particular doctor, but sometimes in a field, we don't know someone who's dealt with that particular issue of expertise. And so, how do I gain my confidence in the doctor? What are the techniques, if there are any, in terms of better research on people in general, in terms of really their history and dealing with it?
Absolutely. And LinkedIn may not be the right place to go for doctor information. I don't know. Rachel can advise on that, but whatever the resources or the forums are, to tap into kind of your super connector, whether it's Rachel or someone else, to go to the person who knows knows lots of the resources that you believe you should be tapping into and can give you guidance. And again, that's similar to what I do when someone is starting a job search, doesn't know where to begin. I lay out kind of an overview and sometimes more specific about what I suggest they think about, who I suggest they connect with. So I would say honing in on those resources and finding out which the best ones are, and then crowdsourcing with your community, whether it's this group, whether it's a group of family and friends, to say, I am starting to work with a new doctor who specializes in XYZ. Here are my questions or concerns. Does anyone have advice or personal experience with this type of situation or type of doctor? And then, of course, there's always using AI. Now, we can't completely rely on AI, but if you do a search on ChatGPT or Claude about specific doctors, that actually may be able to link you to sites where people have reviewed that doctor, or may give you guidance when you prompt the LLM to what types of questions to ask or what watch outs for that type of doctor. So leveraging AI as well is something I encourage.
Interesting. You mentioned you use LLMN.
So LLM stands for large language model. That's basically what AI is. So whether
Gotcha.
you use ChatGPT as an example of that, Claude's an example, Gemini, it's kind of, dealer's choice,
Okay.
whichever one you use and find to
Okay.
be most helpful.
Okay, that was excellent. Thank you so much. And the other question initially I had was the slowing them down. Like, how do I do that?
In the moment,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just you can approach it head on and say, Dr. So and so, I'm happy to have this conversation. Please know I have questions, and I will be asking you to clarify those questions because I want to make sure I'm really understanding the situation. So then when you're pausing them, they're prepared for that. You already set it up that, this is what I'm looking for. I want to make sure I really understand how you're answering my questions. So they're more prepared. You can always record the conversation. I mean, I find when I go to doctors, I'm taking notes on my phone, but if you feel like you need to record the conversation, still get your questions clarified, but that may be helpful for you to go back and review.
Absolutely.
So again, if that's something you choose to do, you might say ahead of time. So because of this, and I want to make sure I'm following all the steps, I'm going to record this conversation.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think another thing that Jodi said that was really interesting that I've never really thought of is that when you're making a connection, it doesn't have to be to an individual. It can be with an organization, or it can be, whether it's to woman or to another support group or advocacy group or, some sort of clearinghouse, that can help you with whatever you're looking for, whether it's information, whether it's, personal connections, whether it's in the job world, in, the healthcare world. And I think that's really interesting because that's a very untraditional way to look at networking and connections. But I love that because I think, again, as social workers, a lot of our training has to do with connecting people to resources. And that resource may not be something that we know personally, but for example, someone might come to me in my role, at Woman to Woman, and they might say, I'm looking, to connect with someone learning about this specific type of treatment. We may not have a mentor, we may not know about that, but I know, okay, the Ovarian Cancer Research Alliance has a much larger network of woman-to-woman programs and networks. Let me reach out to them, see who they can put us in touch with, and then hopefully get a name from them and then make the connection. And I think that that's, a really, really great way to look at it. It's not just who you know, but it's the people that you know and the organizations or other networks they may be part of. I really like that a lot. And I see
That's
that Deb
true.
has her hand up.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that in terms of researching doctors, there are a number of different sites, but the one I personally use and I get a lot of information, I put it in the chat. It's
Oh, great.
vitals.com. And I just like the site a lot. And then, of course, you can get a feel for the person if you want to do like a meet and greet for a doctor.
Mm,
Oftentimes, I will ask to schedule a meet and greet, and I usually get a good feel, somewhat of a good feel at that point in time. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is if I don't get clarity in the question that I have asked, I will specifically say to the doctor, I don't think that I was clear in what I am looking for.
mhm.
Please let me rephrase my question so that we're both on the same page. So it's kind of a technique that is often used called paraphrasing,
Mhm.
because sometimes you think you hear what the person is saying, but when you paraphrase them back, the person may say to you, that's not what I was saying, that's not what I was asking. I just find that to be really helpful. And oftentimes, when my students would have a question, I would paraphrase the question before I responded to them. That
Mhm.
way, I'm giving them a response that they're looking for. I just wanted to say that.
That's great. And
And
that's another way of building relationships, right? I mean,
right.
really showing someone, I hear you and I want to make sure I'm accurately hearing you. So I'm going to parrot back in a paraphrased way what I think you're asking for. Every application asks you if, you would need accommodations. So
Mhm.
you certainly should be checking that off. And then regardless of what the role is, as long as you're going after roles that align with your experience and that are remote or possibly can be done remote, then it just goes back to, well, how strong is your resume compared to other people who are competing for a similar job? How can we best position you? What does your LinkedIn look like? How to really differentiate yourself from other candidates. And I can't speak to, but I'm happy to chat further about the advice you got on your resume. I'm not sure how your health needs in any way to be reflected in your resume. Your resume should just reflect your job experience and a bit of your personality, though that's more so on LinkedIn, and your superpowers. Like nothing personal needs to be shared in a resume. You can use AI also to do a search for the types of companies you're interested in working for and the types of roles and what companies hire remote positions for that particular type of role. And it just may be a starting point, and they give you
Okay.
ideas about companies to proactively reach out to, because none of us can rely on just the jobs that are posted on LinkedIn. 6% of people are finding jobs that way. So we really need to build our network and build what I call kind of the hidden job market, which is how do you make connections with people that lead to other connections. So you're getting information from those people about jobs
Right.
that are becoming available. They themselves may be hiring. And again, using AI. And back to what you said about paraphrasing and what we talked about coming prepared with questions before visiting a doctor, you can even put that into ChatGPT or Claude or what have you. These are the questions I plan to ask my doctor because I have concerns about XYZ. Is this the best way to ask the question? Am I missing something? If this is really my concern, maybe it will come back and say, this question is fine, but it's not really getting at what your main concern is. Try asking this question or that question. And I would also recommend, as we're talking about different resources, Rachel, I know you put something in the chat. Deborah, you're mentioning some resources, as have others. It's helpful. I don't know if it's possible, but to create a platform that you're communicating on, and maybe there's not a budget for that, but with a group that can pose questions, who has a doctor that they recommend for XYZ, as well as a place where you can house these resources. So you're not going back to emails and scrambling and trying to figure out who sent me that resource, where is that link? And an easy way to do that is creating a WhatsApp chat. I find that to be very effective for groups that I've been in, whether it's groups of people who are looking for similar jobs as me, whether it's a group of parents on my kids' basketball team. And you always know, let me go back to that WhatsApp chat because I know someone put a resource in there. Or let me go back to that chat and ask a question. And this is one of my communities, so I know people are going to respond.
I love that idea. And I think, again, I would offer that woman to woman can help play that role in certain cases. Again, not that Jillian and I know all because we don't, but we have resources we can go to. For example, we call it hashtag social work. There's something like 500 social workers who work at Mount Sinai. Not just I will, people often put in things outside of their area of expertise, so
Mm-hmm.
Within the past 24 hours, someone said, I have a patient that needs an air conditioner. Does anyone have any idea how to get an air conditioner paid for? And
Mm-hmm.
multiple people will write in. I've put things on there regularly. I had a patient who was caring for a family member who needed some resources related to like inpatient, like rehab,
Mm-hmm.
facilities and things like that I forgot where, some area that was not in New York City. It was like upstate New York or Connecticut, something like that. And I put it in there, and all of these social workers were like, oh, call this number. Again, they didn't know exactly, but several people gave um, referral services that I then passed on to this patient for their family member looking for these resources. And so,
Mm-hmm.
again, I totally agree. It's the idea of like, okay, you don't need to be right in the bullseye, but maybe if I speak to someone who is two rungs out, they'll know someone who's one rung in, who knows someone who's one rung in. And I think that that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And similarly, that's what I encourage my job seeking clients to do. Speak to as many people as possible, ask for introductions, and then that will lead to more. And it's the same idea. maybe that next introduction has an actual job, or like you said, has an actual resource that's in your bullseye. But if not, follow up with who are 3 people you can introduce me to? Or in this scenario, what are other resources? If you don't know the resources, who do you think might?
I like that question a lot. And I think that's something that would really apply to your doctor too. If you're asking a question, again, not, that's why we encourage second opinions, and we really encourage, for you to go to your doctor and how to ask for a second opinion in a way that you feel comfortable with. And it's something that's very much a part of the medical profession, but people
Right.
are often scared to do that. But it's basically the same question. It's saying, I trust you and I trust your expertise. Do you have someone else I should be speaking to who might have some other additional expertise to weigh in on to us, not just to me, but the whole point is you're partnering with your doctor to see what else might be out there. That's really appropriate. And no
Right.
doctor's going to say no to that. And if they do, you should get another doctor.
Absolutely. And in terms of building relationships, just a simple thank you. Thank you for sending me, recommending I reach out to that doctor or that resource. It was really helpful. I really appreciate you, Rachel or Margie or Deb. Thank you.
We're all
What
kind
else?
of very quiet right now. I don't
And
know
I have
if
a
it's
question,
because we're scared. Who has the question?
Margie.
Oh, I think Margie
Margie,
said she has.
yes.
Are there things that you find that people do um, that turn off others? Like they don't realize they talk too much, which I've seen a lot of. And how would you tell someone that? Because sometimes people say to me, Margie, why do you connect with people so easily? How can I do that? And that it's sort of it's a skill, but it's not always easy to explain the skill or to coach people. I assume that's part of what you do, to have
Mhm.
that skill or enhance their skill. So sometimes it's helpful to hear what people do that are not effective, those kinds of things that maybe we should all look at ourselves and make sure we're not doing that.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, first of all, who is asking you the question? Are they really open to feedback? So if you give them some constructive feedback, like Margie, the person that's asking you, maybe they do talk quickly and maybe their message gets jumbled because they're talking so quickly. If you, of course, kindly gave them that feedback, are they really open to that feedback? And sometimes you have to ask the person, certainly you can lead with, here are my suggestions, but you could also say, are you open to me giving you some feedback? And you might not have that feedback right off the bat. You may say, I want to think about it more and come back to you. And if the person says yes, then you should give them that feedback in a thoughtful and kind way. Again, the example of, you might want to think about slowing down.
So are there other things people do? Certainly talking too fast, not listening, but besides the feedback, in addition, that's helpful. But in addition, when
Yeah,
things that people do that do not connect them, that actually get in their way from connection.
right. And this is a broad question. So I'll give some examples. It depends. Are we talking about connecting on a Zoom? Are we talking about connecting in person? Are we talking about walking up to people who we don't know? So there are obviously different scenarios. But again, I come back to preparation. If it's about you're walking into an in-person event, planning your strategy. What do I want to get out of this event? Do I want to meet 3 new people? And if so, how am I identifying those 3 new people? Are they 3 new people that I'm hoping I can get some connections to medical resources? Are they 3 new people that I'm hoping can give me help on my job search? What is your goal? And then to the degree that you can, identify those people ahead of time. So as an example, if I'm going to a conference, I look at the attendee list and the speaker list, and I'll send a LinkedIn message to a speaker ahead of time. Hi Margie, I'm looking forward to hearing you speak about XYZ topic at the conference on Thursday. So you're kind of like planting the seed. So when I find you in person, I've already kind of laid the groundwork and introduced myself. Or like a Zoom like this, as I suggested, share your LinkedIn in the chat, connect with people. And then if you're sending a connection request over LinkedIn, I always recommend sending a note with it. So if you're on your mobile and you're sending a LinkedIn connection, the option is personal invite. And if you're on your laptop, the option is add a note, because that provides context. Again, we're talking about different ways of connecting, and you don't have to say anything specific, because all you want them to do is accept your LinkedIn request at that time. So I would simply say, hi Margie, great to be connected, ! Jodi. I just want them to accept. And then when you accept, I will write you a message. Hey Margie, it would be great to chat about how we can help each other. Back to that. I always suggest including a link to your calendar. If that's something that's useful to you, I use Calendly, so you don't have to go back and forth several times over email or LinkedIn message or text. Let's find a time to meet. Well, what times work for you? Well, those times don't work. What other times work? I just send a calendar link. So those are just a couple of ways beyond shaking someone's hand if they're open to it, listening, making a connection, asking them about themselves, looking them in the eye. I always do a bit of research on people before I meet with them. I look at their LinkedIn profile so I can say something complimentary like, wow, Rachel, you have an amazing background, 29 years at the same organization, unbelievable. And you can also look for things you have in common. Deborah, wow, I see we're both involved in this organization or have volunteered at this organization. So it's, how do you create that common ground and make an immediate connection, and really just being authentic. So those are just some ideas.
Those are great suggestions. And again, I think those apply to anything. It's interesting. We just did a training. We have 3 new peer mentors that we trained last Thursday, actually exactly a week ago. And so much of the training focuses just on listening. And it's funny when you hear it over, and we had people who popped on who are seasoned volunteers, and every one of them was like, just listen, just listen. And that's like, I could distill, 2 years of graduate school into one word. That's kind of what it's about. Also, people also when you ask questions and just listen to the answer, and we talk about how you listen and demonstrate your listening. And it's a lot of what you're saying. It's like, you can take notes, you can make eye contact, you lean in, you say things like, yes, okay. Stuff that comes naturally to some people, but doesn't come naturally to every single person. And I tell the story a lot that we were expanding Woman to Woman to Vietnam, and with one of our amazing patients, Carolyn Taylor, who runs an NGO called Global Focus on Cancer. And she had me come over, and we trained 240 women with cancer to be peer mentors. And I like this story because it illustrates how important just sort of being present and in the moment. And if you ask a question, not just like, okay, I need to get to my next question, but really listening to what the answer is.
Right.
And so when we went over, I had designed this whole training. We were there for 10 days in multiple cities, and really nuanced stuff, and kind of a similar version to what we do here. And someone raised her hand, a woman raised her hand, and she said, I have a question. I was talking about listening. I have a question. And she said, there's a woman in my village who was diagnosed with a similar type of cancer, and someone connected us by phone. And I got on the phone with her, and I was so excited because I wanted her to know everything that could possibly happen, everything that could go wrong, everything that she should be aware of. And I just, Vietnam is a communist country. Information is very valuable.
Mhm.
Information, where do you get food? Where do you get resources? This is very valuable. She wanted her to have the information. She said, so I was so excited when she called me. She said, I just wanted her to know it all. So I talked and talked and talked and talked. And she said, and 2 hours went by. And I was, yeah, should I, and I was so excited because I gave her all the information, and I finally stopped talking, and I realized that she was crying, and she was so upset, and she hung up the phone and never called me back again. And I don't understand what I did wrong. And
Mhm.
what I realized is that in Vietnam, because information is so valuable, listening is not really a skill that is
Mm.
kind of, you know, inherent as part of the culture that's considered
Mhm.
valuable. And so I scrapped my months of work I had put together, and we literally spent the next, week and a half teaching people how to listen. And it was
Mhm.
so interesting. And we had them role play, and it was like these light bulbs went off, and it's something so basic like that. And someone like, Margie, you're the most connected person that I know, not in terms of connections, but making, connecting with people. You could, connect with anybody, and it comes probably very naturally. You're a curious person, you ask questions, you listen carefully, you ask thoughtful follow-up. But again, the only reason I'm saying it is because it's been such a part of like this past week, this training that we did, and hearing what you're saying, that it's actually really simple, to cut through that and have people feel connections and want to help you. I'll also
Right.
share like when I was a teenager, my mom had a best friend who, she was the person who like got everything. She's the one who got like the extra, discount on things, and she got the best tickets and seats for things. And I remember talking to her, and she gave me great advice. And literally, I'm 55 years old. I mean, I've been using this for, 40 years. She said, she said, people like to feel helpful. And she said, and if you really make them feel helpful, again, this can apply whether it's for a job or a healthcare professional or anything you might be looking for. She said that she would start like with customer service people. Her phrase was, I have a problem and I'm hoping you can help me. And it's like this beautiful little phrase, that can work, a version of it, to
Yeah.
everything. And it's the idea of, like, thank you in advance for your help. People want to feel helpful. We say that with little kids. I have a 3-year-old nephew, and we always say, you're such a good helper. He loves feeling like a good helper. So,
And it disarms people, right? Because if you're a customer service rep, you don't know what kind of call you're going to get on the other end of that phone 1 minute to the next, right? And when you start with such a lovely, can you help me solve my problem? It just disarms them. And I'm sure they're then a lot more open.
Well,
it's
Rachel,
time.
we would love for you to help us conduct a real role play on some of this that we just learned today. I know Margie talked to us before, but sometimes actually doing the role play ourselves with somebody who may not be, who truly want to learn how to do this and not be offended or look to sound intelligent amongst us. I don't care what I sound like per se. I just want to know how to do it so that when I'm in the real life situation with a doctor or needing services, I can enact that role play. I want to be embarrassed amongst my peers here who are sick, who are trying to stay healthy so that and remain healthy. And I think I could do that better if I know how to actually do what you just said and actually role play it. So I'm down if you ever schedule one.
I love that. I mean, I don't know, Jody, would you want to come back and maybe lead a role play and we can come up with a couple of scenarios? And, again, one can be, job networking, one can be with the healthcare, one can just be like everyone interacts
Yeah,
with customer service people, like
Absolutely.
we could, Amanda's here. Amanda works at the DMV, we could have Amanda role play, we could be at the DMV, and
Right.
I think that's a great idea, Cynthia. I love that.
I would
I
love it.
love that. And Cynthia, I would just add,
Mhm.
let's try to be kind to ourselves and not undermine ourselves. So you talked about how you're okay feeling embarrassed in front of this group. What makes you think there's anything to be embarrassed of? You're very articulate, and think about this group or any group that you trust as being a place, sure, that you can more authentically share, but there's absolutely nothing that you should feel embarrassed about.
Thank you.
Well, this was awesome. The time flew by. I think the idea of some sort of a follow-up session that it's really more interactive using some of these principles in various scenarios sounds like a great idea. So, Cynthia, thank you. See, that is an example of like advocacy and networking and connecting, saying like this is
Yes.
something I would like. And so I think that would be awesome. So everyone, thank you so much for being here. Jody, thank you for sharing this again, the way you present the information, the enthusiasm that you have about it, and the practicality of the information to really like any and every scenario in life
Yes.
is just it's astounding. I mean, these are life skills that we're talking
Yes.
about, and however people want to apply them, there are means, and so this was really, really wonderful. And I'm literally going to reach out to you and we'll figure out a follow-up time for session number two. Again, hopefully it will be all of you. And I know a couple of people had to jump off early, but other people, might just appeal also the idea of sort of role playing for, and I would take it bigger. It's not just connection, for connection and self-advocacy, because that's what it is.
Right.
I love it. So this was awesome.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
would be honored to be involved in 2.0 of this. And thank you, Rachel, for the opportunity. And to all of you amazing women, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Jody. This was great. And thank you all for participating. And, if anyone has any follow-up questions, just reach out and I can connect you to Jody. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Enjoy this beautiful, beautiful weather. And we'll
Take
talk
care.
soon. Bye, everyone.